Welcome to episode 2 of the Crazy Geezer podcast, and today's guest is Bobby Carra. Hey, dude, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks
I'm
for
doing
having me
all right.
on.
How was your weekend?
It's pretty good. I mean, I was a little under the weather yesterday, but I'm starting to feel a little better, which is good because I have a lot of projects that I have to finish up so that I can get to some other ones that I just got brought on board for as well. So a busy weekend, but still a good weekend.
Start from the beginning. What are you working on?
So right now I'm working on a proof of concept theme for a Friday the 13th fan film called Jason's Fury. The trailer for the Indiegogo campaign is going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. More specifically, it'll actually be coming out on Friday the 13th, on June 13th. And so I want to make sure that there's some music set for that. And we're probably going to have a track that's releasable for people to listen to as well, just to kind of give them an idea of what the musical tone of the film might end up being. That's one project. In addition to that, I'm still helping out on the end of Hunt, Chase, Kill. You know, that's a feature that Paul Sutt was doing, and that ended up having its premiere at New Jersey HorrorCon just over the weekend that passed. And it was very successful. It was very well received. It won an award. People were very complimentary of the music, but also of a lot of other stuff as well. But we're going to have an event coming up for that in a little while. We're going to have kind of what initially started out as just a casting party with maybe some relatives is going to turn into something a little larger scale. Paul's pretty much turning it into a red carpet big thing of sorts where we're going to have a big premiere of it. It's going to be at the Crossroads in New Jersey. So I want to make sure that a few finishing touches that we're going to put on the film that we couldn't get to in time for the festival are taken care of so that it's the best possible version of the movie that everybody's going to see who comes to the thing. And then on top of that, I got a handful of other movies I'm working on. There's a detective noir short film called The Muck that I'm scoring. There are, ironically, 2 Wendigo films that I'm working on that I didn't realize were going to be 2 Wendigo films, actually, when I was brought on board for them. One of them is called Bloodwood, and that's going to be a short film that's going to turn into, basically, that'll be a proof of concept and hopefully turn into a feature. The other is Wendigo and the Wicca, and that is a feature. That just straight up is a feature already. And the same guy who's doing Bloodwood has me on board for a couple of other projects as well, a short film and also a video game that's going to be coming out down the road. And then, as I posted a little while ago, there's this other film called A Fetish of Flesh that it looks like I'm going to be doing as well. And that's definitely going to be one of the more over-the-top ones. There's going to be some wild stuff taking place in that movie. So a lot going on in one shot. Now, it's not like I got to score all this stuff in the next couple of weeks. A lot of this stuff hasn't even filmed yet, but it is stuff that's not too far down the pipeline.
Sounds great. And I was there for the Hunt, Chase, Kill premiere, and that was a really good movie. It's one of those, what nice. A horror movie should be, where it's like I'm just sitting quietly on the floor, stretching my legs, because we're at a convention, you know, a lot of walking.
Yeah.
And I was able to enjoy the movie, quietly. And I was just doing the commentary in my head, like, oh, this isn't going to go well. No, you don't want to go in there. No, you don't want to be drinking this or taking this. This is not going to work. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I remember there were so many misfires at the beginning of that when they started it. Like, it was one of these urge to kill rising types of situations for myself and for Paul as well, for that matter. If you recall, there was a sound issue when it first started. Were you there at the very beginning when that happened?
I think so.
All right. There was more to it than that. So Paul and I were trying to get a version of this film that could be submitted to the festival. And initially, I was going to have a couple of months to work on the film, the score for the film, that is. And it didn't look like there was going to be any kind of a hurry. But then Paul found out about the convention, which initially, I believe, there was a good chance it wasn't going to happen, but then turns out it was going to happen, and they were curious about the film as well. So I had already committed to making sure I finished some other projects before I could really start working on the Hunt, Chase, Kill score again. I'd already been doing stuff for it, but I kind of set stuff aside thinking I had a couple of months. And once I spoke with Paul again, and he kind of brought me up to speed, hey, this convention is in fact happening. Let's see if we can get a version out for it. It was like, okay. And I'm calculating it in my head, like, all right, that's going to give me maybe 3 weekends with some days in between to work on what I need to. The first of those weekends, Paul and I ended up taking a huge amount of time to actually edit some of the scenes and kind of cut some stuff down, make it a more crisp film, improve the pacing a little bit, improve the quality of some of the dialogue and some of the actions that took place, which was great. It made it a better film, but that also took away one of the 3 weekends that I had. And so by this point, I'm like, okay, got 2 weekends and maybe a few days in between to make sure I get this ready. And so I had like 75% of the movie scored and finalized, but there were moments that I had to, at least for the version we initially submitted, just to have something workable that they could watch and view and decide whether or not it was going to be in the festival, I had to take music from other scenes and put them in these scenes that it not necessarily was going to have that music for. Now, that's not too out of the question. There are so many movies where you'll hear the same music over and over again, and I did that deliberately in a lot of parts of Hunt, Chase, Kill.
Sure.
But there were some scenes where I was going to put something different in there and didn't have the time. And so we had a version of it that was workable. It wasn't bad by any means, but I knew what it was going to sound like otherwise, and I was like, man, this is the not so great version compared to what we were going to have. But in my mind, no problem. That's cool. We're going to be getting back to it as soon as he submits it. If he finds out that it's been accepted, then I got a couple of weeks and I can finish out those other parts the way they're supposed to be. And then he's just going to bring it in on a stick drive, no problem at all. And that's what we did. We had a couple of mishaps where the thing wasn't loading properly on the stick drive. But once that was resolved, it wasn't an issue at all. I got the new music on there. He had an updated version of the film and it looked and sounded great. So we get there. Well, I get there. Paul had already been there for a number of hours. I get there. My kids are with me. And I can kind of see Paul's got a certain look. And I can kind of tell that something's wrong. Like, I haven't even said hi to him yet. But you know how you can kind of just see a certain look in someone's eye, especially if you kind of know them well, get along with them really well. Like, something's off. And I can kind of tell something wasn't quite right. And sure enough, when I go to say hello to him, he's like, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. And before he even said it, like, I already knew what he was going to say, and the headache already started kicking in. And it was, I went to go hand in my stick drive for the updated music version of Hunt, Chase, Kill, and the guys told me, well, we already have the other version you submitted, and it's all queued up with a whole list that we've got. And this was like a not negotiable situation. So we were going to be stuck with the version that we first submitted that had like only 75% of the music where it was supposed to be, and the rest of it was just filler. And so in my mind, I'm like, all right, it doesn't sound bad, but it's really not showcasing what the movie has potential to really be. And so already I'm like, damn it. So, all right, migraine's starting to kick in pretty good now by this point. And then we get into the movie theater about 10 or 15 minutes later, and as you saw, the movie went on. Never mind the early version of the film where some of the music wasn't what it was supposed to be. There was no sound at all. And immediately, like you just heard the stomach. You can actually probably hear the sound effect of my stomach sinking, and you probably heard it even more for Paul's. It was like it was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Never mind the lesser version of the film. Now we've got a silent film. Great. So we're trying to play it off. We're joking or whatnot. Oh, yeah, there's the D minor that kicks in over here, and Paul's like, Bobby, just make a couple of drum sounds right now. So all right, cool. So I step out of the room for a second because I actually needed to go grab something in another room. And it also gave me a chance to like walk outside. It was like in Kindergarten Cop when he first blows up at the kids and he goes out of the building and he's just like, ah! That was pretty much me. So I go out and all right, fine. I breathed for a little while. I walked back in and I hear the music for the opening scene. Like the opening scene's about to end. The music's on. I'm like, oh, good. They fixed it, whatever was going on. So I go to sit down and one of my kids tells me, yeah, whatever version of it that Paul had on his stick drive, they let him play that instead because the other one was just dead in the water. It wasn't happening at all. So I'm like, wait a minute, the one on his stick drive, that's the updated version. That's the version with the music that we wanted. And so I walk over to Paul to confirm this. I'm like, did they end up having to play the version of it that we actually wanted them to play? He was like, yep. And so I'm like, yeah, good. It was like, happy accident. Bob Ross, happy accident, And so I did notice, like, probably 10 or 15 minutes into the movie, I first saw just the people we came in with. It was like, what? 15 people tops, something like that, maybe a little more. What I didn't realize is during the first 15 or 20 minutes the movie was on, more people came in. And so I'm kind of doing like the fake stretch and crack my back thing to look behind me and see how many people are there. I'm like, oh, damn, there's a lot of people in this room. Like all of a sudden it was like 30, 40 people. And I kind of had the feeling, all right, this is a festival. These people are going to come in. They're probably going to leave after 5 minutes because that's how a lot of people are. And after a while, I'm noticing most of them actually stayed for the whole film. I was like, wow, okay, awesome. And so it was, ended up being a real success. We had the version of the film that we wanted to hear, and people really received it very well. Paul got a lot of compliments. People would tell me they really liked the music, and then they won for the effects as well. So it couldn't have gone any better, like in hindsight, you know?
You did it. You did a great job. Paul did a great job, and congratulations on the award.
Oh, thank you.
Well earned, well earned. And when that movie comes out, then the rest of the world is going to find out, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah, same. So once I find out from Paul what the distribution is going to be, then I'll of course be updating people as he will be as well. I know that the thing on July 6th, that's going to be the screening and the red carpet thing that he's setting up at the Crossroads. And I'm not sure what's going to happen right after that. I'm guessing a lot of it is dependent on what happens at that event. I'm not sure if it'll immediately be pushed to go onto streaming at some point, or if it'll end up making a round at a couple of other festivals or some kind of combination. But I'll of course let you know as I know.
I appreciate that. And yeah, combination sounds very reasonable. And well, also after the premiere, is there going to be like a Q&A?
Yeah, we're gonna pretty much kind of pull out all the stops with that. He was speaking with me about this yesterday, so we're gonna do a Q&A. We'll probably have I believe the guys are going to be there in costume again, like they were on Sunday at the HorrorCon. So they're going to be taking pictures. As many of us as can be are going to be there taking pictures, answering questions, autographing stuff, all that stuff. Whether it be autographing posters or anything else, kind of like what we did with the Swine and Dine posters with Ron and Chris.
Speaking of Swine and Dine.
Oh yeah. I finally got this in the mail. I wanted to actually wear it to the HorrorCon, but I got it like a day or two too late, so that wasn't an option.
Well, wait. At the con, I wore the same shirt you did.
Oh yeah,
because you saw me. I was at the table with Ron and Chris.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got mine a little bit later. I think they sent it out in a couple of different waves, and so I got mine on like the Monday that followed or something like that.
It's all good. You got the shirt. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Well, plus I ended up getting those posters as well. The artwork on the newer one I really like a lot because it looks like an old VHS cover. That's probably the best way I could describe that. You know,
that's Ron's exact description, or Chris's, or both.
Yeah, like it reminds me of when I was a little kid, and I would be. You could say at Blockbuster because it happened there too, but even more so at the earlier video stores, like the mom and pop shops, where not every video store had the same movie, and you could go in there and there was the huge horror section. It was usually next to the wrestling section in most cases. And it would be just this wall of all of this amazing artwork for the VHS covers. And it's almost one of those things that was lost for a while. I think it's kind of making a comeback. It seems like for the last maybe year or two, people have been wanting to get back to that aesthetic, which I think is awesome because that was such a draw, especially when I was a kid. I looked at it, and before I even knew what the movie was about, I'd see the cover and be like, I don't know what the hell this is about, but I really want to watch it now.
You know what? I think we all succumb to VHS box art, especially in horror movies, and intrigued our curiosity. It's like, ooh, I wonder what this is like.
Yeah. Oh, that did it for me all the time. Probably the first ones that I looked at were, and this was by default for me, was the Friday the 13th ones, because that was the first slasher franchise that I really got into. And I absolutely loved the hell out of the VHS covers for that franchise. Like the first, Jason Goes to Hell wasn't out yet, although that has an awesome cover too. But like the first 8 films, like literally every single cover was like almost telling a story. Like, man, that's pretty awesome. I haven't even seen the movie yet, but now I really want to.
The 8th movie, Jason Takes Manhattan, was the first one I saw after I played the NES game of Friday the 13th for the first time back in '91.
Nice. Jason Takes Manhattan was my first one as well.
Uh-huh.
I was it was afterwards that I played the game, but yeah, Jason Takes Manhattan. I remember very specifically. I kind of knew who Jason was because of commercials, and you'd see the
Sure.
hockey mask. And so me, I'd be like, yeah, the mask that has all the holes in it with the guy, I don't know what it's about, but it looks really cool. And I could tell it was a horror movie because I'd already been watching horror movies. I had been watching horror movies since I was like 2 or 3 years old. And so that was just a normal thing for me. One of like, I saw Jaws when I was like 2 or 3. When I was probably 4, I had John Carpenter's The Thing just constantly replaying on my VHS that was in my room.
Sorry for
But
the shout out. That movie scared the crap out of me as a kid.
oh yeah,
And then years ago, it's like, Mom, I watched it and I didn't get scared. Good for you.
it's like it's great, honey. Yeah, that's pretty much. I have relatives like that. It's like that's real nice to know. All right, proud of you.
So going back to your theory of the possibility of VHS, stores, or at least the setup is making a comeback. Has been making a comeback for quite a while. I know a few YouTubers that have done that, and I'm thinking to myself that's great, but that's also ridiculous at the same time. It's just then again, all this year ridiculous.
Yeah,
but hey, people like what they like.
I love that aesthetic. If it's something, in my opinion. The 80s kind of got away with it because at least most of the movies either were really good or even if they were a bad movie, still had a certain charm to them that you'd still enjoy it,
Yes.
So hopefully that's the case that if there's anybody who's kind of carrying that aesthetic now, hopefully that ends up being the case where it's like, okay, it's either going to be really good or even if it's not necessarily the best movie, it's still a fun ride,
Of course, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
I mean, not every horror movie is great. There's plenty of bad ones, but hey, we love them.
Yeah. I got a whole ton of them. I was usually that guy. I was the guy in high school and even afterwards for that matter that, if people were going to watch a movie they hadn't seen before, it was me. I would be the one that would have it on VHS. And 9 times out of 10, it would be, 6 movies on a VHS, if you get my drift. And so the old school recording style when you had the 2 VHS players, that was
or
that
you
was
just be recording off the TV like HBO or now, and that's for the uncut versions. Now there's the edited versions, for TV like USA Up All Night. And was it Joe Bob Briggs was another?
Yeah, I remember my family. This was a big thing in my neighborhood. A lot of people had. If you had cable, a lot of people had the box, if you know what I'm talking about.
Black box.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things where I was able to get all the new horror movies and we'd be like, oh, shit, okay. Well, that's awesome because that's not coming out for another year on actual. Back when VHS, if it was going to be released, it would be like a year after the movie.
Absolutely. I remember too. Nowadays, it's like if a movie comes out within a few months, it's already available for streaming or physical.
Yeah, there were so many that I missed the boat on that I really wanted to go see in a theater that looked good, ended up being good. And it was one of those things of, well, I actually had stuff to do and it was only in a theater for 2 or 3 weeks, except maybe for some ones that were about 5 hours away or something like that. And after that, it's like, okay, I'm not doing that,
Well, that was because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because everything shut down and everybody stayed at home. And it's like, in the theater and the movie industry, it's like, what do we do? Stream it.
Yeah, and I think they kind of stepped a little too far. I think they went too much with it and didn't pull back once they were able to kind of open things back up.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, it's very convenient in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I like going to the movies. I like the experience of sitting in a theater and experiencing it for the first time with a large screen in an air-conditioned dark room and potentially having a bunch of snacks and a few of your friends around you so that you can kind of enjoy that experience together, and I think it's almost a lost or a semi-lost, not lost art, but I guess, what's the word? A lost recreation or a lost activity because not everybody does that in that same way anymore,
Have you noticed that when people go to the theaters, they bring blankets with them? Have you seen that?
I've seen it, yeah. I never was one of those guys because I always was relieved by the air conditioning. I was always kind of like, oh, thank God, especially if it was the summer. I
Exactly.
remember when my kids, this was back, it was either 2013 or 2014, whatever year World War Z came out. I remember it being the summer, and my kids were real little. I'm talking like they were 1 and 6 months old, something like that. And it was one of these hot days that where the air conditioner was not cutting it, and there was nowhere to go that was going to be enjoyable. Like, it was hot in our place. Anywhere I took them outside, even if there was water involved, was still going to feel miserable. And
Uh,
so I was like, "Oh, screw this! Let's go to the movies." And I had no reservations whatsoever about taking them to see a scary movie. They had already seen Alien with me and whatnot, so I was like, "All right, they're fine." And so I had this double city mini stroller and walked into the theater, and we ended up watching World War Z. So I have this stroller that's next to the aisle because it ain't fitting in the seats, and they can't fit in the seats because they're too
right.
small.
Right.
And so I've got this big thing of popcorn, and I remember my younger daughter, who was just old enough to eat something like that, I'd like give her a hand of popcorn, and like you'd see, here's like the wall of the stroller, and every 10 or 15 seconds after I gave her a little popcorn, you just see this. You just see like a hand for more popcorn. Okay, give her some more. About 10, 15 seconds later. You know? And she was like up for the whole movie. It was actually pretty funny. The part with the plane crash in that movie, after they actually crashed and everything cut to black for a couple of seconds, it was just long enough to hear this little kid go, "Uh-oh." And you heard these people on the other side of the theater start laughing at it. You know?
Well, how can you be upset with a child that young anyway?
Yeah, yeah. So movies were always a big thing for me, and they're largely a big thing for my kids as well, for what are probably obvious reasons, you know?
Yeah, going to the movies is a lot of fun, but here's something I've always poked fun at. It's like, so if it's just you and a few friends and you get this big tub of popcorn for like $20 and you don't finish it, and you get these oversized drinks for oversized prices, you're not going to finish in one sitting. Who does that?
Yeah. Well, that's what always having someone wear a coat even on a hot day is for. You know, and
Well,
what I mean by that is you always make sure to bring something in with you. You might still buy that popcorn, you might still buy that soda, but you're buying one of each at the most because you don't want your snacks to cost more than your tickets. I that was the thing. As a kid, I always we'd bring something in. You know, we'd still get stuff at the theater, stuff to eat. That is, we just wouldn't spend $70 on the food.
right, exactly. It's like for me personally, I'm happy with an icy, biggest size, whatever flavor, maybe
Yeah,
a little box of Whoppers and maybe a small popcorn, and that's only if I'm
yeah.
in the mood. But that's rare.
Well, the other thing is that for me personally, especially if it's going to be a long movie, I sometimes will just want to gut it out and not eat or drink anything because I don't have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the movie.
That's
I get
another thing.
annoyed when that happens. I get annoyed when it's someone else going to the bathroom because I'm like, man, you're going to probably miss some important moment. Let alone if I got to get up and go. I get like legitimately mad. And I'm like, man, I probably just missed some really important plot point because I had to take a piss just now.
Who hasn't this happened to?
Yeah. It's happened to me a couple of times. I can't think of a movie offhand, but I know there are some that I've seen twice. And as a result, I'll watch it again and it'll be like, I don't remember this. Oh, yeah. That's why. That was when I
Well,
got up.
so let's talk about movies for a moment. It's summer's around the corner. What are you looking forward to seeing this year?
28 Years Later is on the top of my list. Like,
That,
without a shadow of a doubt.
that's like Resident Evil on crack.
Well, the thing about that is they got Danny Boyle back for it, and I liked the first two. I thought the 28 Days Later was a brilliant take on that genre, and I'm still going to call it a zombie movie. I know that technically they're alive and infected, and you're going to get people who are going to have a nervous breakdown because you're
Uh,
calling them zombies. But
let's just call them zombies for the sake of it.
yeah, it's one of those things where you feel like you're saying, you know what I mean. Like all right,
No,
let's
no, no,
stop
no. We
splitting
don't.
hairs.
You and I don't have that problem. We're cool.
Yeah, yeah. But
They're
I
zombies.
loved
Sorry.
that movie. That was one of those movies I saw multiple times in the theater because I straight up enjoyed, not because I took a piss and missed part of it, but just because I
Ah,
straight up really enjoyed the hell out of the movie. And I really looked forward to the sequel. I actually enjoyed that one quite a bit as well. I still like the first one better. But at the same time, sequel was a worthy sequel. The first 15 minutes of that sequel or 10 minutes, however long that opening scene is, in my opinion, is one of the most intense scenes I've ever seen, where they get chased out of the house, and that whole moment. I love the way that's directed, and the way the music kicks in. You have just that minimalist music from John Murphy that kicks in, and it works brilliantly. You're literally on the edge of your seat that entire time, and it just gets more and more crazy up until the moment you know the guy's far away enough in the boat to think, okay, he's probably safe.
You know what? I will concur with you and add that to my bucket list for this summer. One other thing I wanted to ask you real quick before we get back into the movies is, do you consider yourself a smart horror fan where it's like you're doing the commentary in your head, like, don't go in there. No. Please, if you want to live, don't do it.
I would say more than half of the time, but there are movies where I'll forgive it. It depends on what type of movie it is. If we're talking about like a good bad movie or something like that, there's a lot more, shall we say, wiggle room, where I'm like, okay, I get what type of movie it is. You've already made it very apparent what type of movie it is and that you have no identity crisis about that whatsoever. So you've got some wiggle room there. It's no problem. But if it's a movie that's supposed to have more than that or expect more of the audience than that, let alone its characters, then that's a different story. Then I will in my mind be like, yeah, that's kind of bringing this down right now. I remember that was actually a problem I had with Evil Dead 2013. As much as there are some things that I love. Yeah. Well, the remake that's kind of not a remake anymore, because since Evil Dead Rise, they've kind of talked about it just taking place in a different universe.
There's another one coming out soon, right?
Yeah, Burn, Evil Dead Burn.
Yes.
I really have no idea what direction that's going to go in, but I am going to see it because I liked the last one. I liked Rise, and I want to see what they do with this for sure.
So, do you see yourself like a hardcore Evil Dead fan?
Love Evil Dead. That's one of my. What's up?
I want to show you something real quick. It's Evil Dead related.
Oh yeah. Oh,
by the way, you got the Book of the Dead right behind you.
Yep. I know you got to show me something, so I will mention something about this in a minute, but I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure, give me a minute.
Yeah, no, go ahead. That'll give me a chance to take a sip of this coffee.
There you go.
Oh, nice. I wanted that game. I wanted to play it. My thing about gaming is if there is not a good local option, a local offline option, that'll usually be the big turnoff for me. Because a lot of the times...
This is offline, Bobby.
It is?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I was under the impression...
first 10 minutes while I was buzzed. This was months ago, though.
I was under the impression that was exclusively online.
You're thinking Friday the 13th. That's kind of online.
Yeah, I know that was the case. I thought it was the case for that as well.
No.
Really?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's good to know, because if it still pops up on a sale at some point, I'll probably get it then, because that was the main reason I actually avoided it. In its description on the Xbox, it had it listed as there wasn't a local option. It was just online only, and that was literally why I was like, I might not have the time for that, and I didn't buy it.
You said on Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Evil Dead Xbox, $40. Or is it? Hang on. No, that's that's another one I gotta show you. Hold on a second. One more, because you mentioned you're talking Evil Dead here.
Yeah, I think I know what you're about to do, but I'm gonna wait and see if I'm right.
You probably are. Where are you at? Come on. Here it is. Get the game out.
Is it Hail to the King? Oh, nice. Okay.
You might want to consider playing some Evil Dead video games in your downtime.
Yeah. Well, now that I know that one, the Xbox one, the big one that was out for a few years, has a local option, which I had no idea. I'll gladly get that. If there's an actual story mode that you can play in one player mode, I will definitely go for that.
I concur. I don't do online. It's just we don't have the time. We're too busy being adults.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The last time that I had a little more time to do that stuff was actually probably the year of COVID and some of the year that followed, because not everything was fully open yet.
That's
where
true.
I was like, I got a little more time for this. That's cool. But that has since dissipated, and I've got maybe, at the most an hour here and there, cumulative, not in one stretch. And so for most games that I want to play, that's not really going to be conducive to a good time. That's going to be conducive to a lot of frustration. I was playing a few and just kind of had to back off from them, especially now because I got a lot of projects I'm working on. I was like, well, I could sit here and play a game, or I can sit here and compose the music for this project and get a head start on it. So it's one of those. All right, I gotta pick my battles here,
Oh, 100%.
But yeah, this is actually I custom did this one. This is a container for the first two movies. You remember how it was the early 2000s? The first two movies each had a box like this.
No,
and it was like, okay.
I was a late bloomer when it came to Evil Dead. Unfortunately.
Oh, all right. So I'll give you a heads up on it, and people listening probably are going to, half of them will probably know exactly what I'm talking about.
Probably.
But in the early 2000s, I believe that's when it was, they had special editions of Evil Dead 1 and 2. And each one, the case that it came in was this like styrofoam latex painted Book of the Dead. And you just had a disc insert on the inside. And it came with the pages of the book and everything. Wow. And so it was real cool. But the one thing was, and anybody who's watching right now, you know what I'm talking about if you have this. The box design, it was just latex and paint with foam underneath it. And so after a while, you're sliding it in and out of, a DVD case of a shelf with a bunch of other cases, and the thing starts to rip apart. And that was what happened. Mine was like, after a certain point, the face was hanging off of the entire case, and it was just bunch of cotton underneath it, And so after a while, I was like, all right, I need to do something about this. And so I got a cigar box at a cigar store that's in my neighborhood, and I got some caulking, and I got some paint and some other stuff, and I glued the face that was on the Evil Dead 2 case that was otherwise falling apart to the cigar box. And then I glued the back of it, too. I mean, it's got the ear and everything. This was, like, ripped straight from the case that the DVD came in.
Oh, wow.
And then I just put about 200 layers of caulking and paint on it until I was able to, like, get all of the stuff outlined properly and a color that I was satisfied with. I wanted a color that looked like the color from the second movie.
Yes.
And so that was why I went with this kind of dark brown. And I liked when the eyes, nose, and mouth were just kind of like a darker color, as opposed to, you see a lot of versions of it where it's like red now, and it doesn't quite look as much like an antiquitous book. I liked it where it was dark. But here's literally the latch of the cigar box, and so you open it up, and I've got all the pages and stuff inside of it that it came with. And I actually, it's got like all liner notes and stuff, and I've got the movies in there with it as well. And so I just kept everything, and what I did was I burned the edges of all the pages so that it would look more like an antique that had been around for centuries. And this is basically my cover now for it. And the thing that made it better, actually, was my kids ended up helping out. This is a few years ago, but they ended up putting some drawings in as well. And so it's one of those things that, like, someone else might have got pissed about it. I'm like, no, the kids just made it better. Like, it's not like I'm ever going to sell this thing.
Exactly.
Like, my kids put their stamp on it. Someone's going to have to tear my arm off for me to get rid of this,
Exactly.
And so that's my Evil Dead spiel. I'm a big Evil Dead fan. Always have been. The first movie's still my favorite of the bunch, although I like them all.
Thoughts on Army of Darkness, the third movie?
Oh, I love that one. That movie is hilarious, man. That was the one that I watched a lot, actually, when my kids were just starting to watch horror movies. The second and third ones were the ones I watched a lot, and Army of Darkness even more so, because they were still really little, and for a lot of really obvious reasons, I wasn't going to play the first one very often.
No.
And so but they loved Army of Darkness, and then once they got a little older, they watched the other ones as well. But so that all three of those movies, for a variety of reasons, definitely hold a special place in my heart. And I would say the same thing for the television series, because you couldn't have gotten a more loyal and respectful continuation than that television series.
Is it canon?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you not seen it?
Like I said, I'm late for the party.
Okay, yeah, strongly recommend. As long as you've seen the trilogy, the series is 3 seasons long, and it literally takes place 30 years or 30 years and change after the events of the original trilogy. And so you pick right back up 30 years later with Ash, and of course he does something stupid, and it releases the stuff. It releases the evil again, and he's got to
Don't tell me.
try to
Don't
fix
tell
it.
me.
Oh, I ain't gonna say nothing else. Yeah, that's stating the obvious. Like, it was pretty obvious that he was going to do something stupid, and it was going to cause a problem. But
Was
I'm
he
not going to
drunk?
say anything else.
Was he
What's
drunk
that?
when it happened?
Close enough. Yeah, he was smoking a joint when it happened.
Of course, you do the stupidest things when you're drunk or high.
Yeah,
Good
but
Lord.
it's so fitting for the character. Like, as I was watching it, I'm like, of course he'd do something this stupid. You know, it was like one of those things. So I very, very strongly recommend that. I would say watch it, maybe even get hard copies of it just so you've got it available. It is really, really is respectful to the original trilogy.
All right. Well, in return, I'm going to try to track down every Evil Dead video game in existence and share the list with you, and then you do what you want. If you need my help, I'm
Oh,
here.
awesome. Awesome. No,
Because
I would like
there's
that.
a Evil Dead computer game from back in the 80s. There was a
Yeah.
PlayStation, Dreamcast, PS2. You get the idea.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't have the system at the time, but I remember when Hail to the King came out, and that was the first one that I took notice of. I was like, "Wait a minute, hold on, that's Evil Dead," you know.
Excuse me.
But I have wanted to play the more recent one. The only reason I didn't get it was what I said earlier. But now that you cleared that up, that pretty much alleviates that. I'll be happy to pick that up.
It plays like Resident Evil 4 over the shoulder perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is offline. And yeah, I was able to play it fine. If I can, you're not going to have a problem either.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
I mean, if you do, let me know and I'll help you out.
Yeah, if there's and so you can play it one player.
I did.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, that pretty much was my only reason. So I will be buying that at some point then, if that's the case.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got today and tomorrow. Why don't I play the game, for your sake, and mine too, and just be 100% sure, because the first 10 minutes was offline and one players.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, fill me in if
I don't want to mislead
that's
you, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Although I probably still, I will deliberately probably not buy it until a few months from now, because I need to maintain the mental discipline of being on top of the projects that I have right now.
Yeah, you don't need.
What I don't want to do, what I don't want to do is throw the monkey wrench of a new video game for myself into the equation. That's just, that's kind of like somebody, trying to abstain from fooling around too much, and he's going to take himself to a strip club.
Strip clubs, give me a break.
Well, yeah, that's a big one for me. But the Friday the 13th one was the other one. That was huge. As you mentioned before, same for me. Jason Takes Manhattan was the first one I saw, and I saw it in the theater. I remember I went with my aunt took me to see it, and I was 5 at the time, and I was like, I had a blast with that movie. There are people who complain about that movie a lot, and I can understand. I'm not like trying to crap on the people who don't like the movie or anything. But I love that movie. Now, at the same time, I love pretty much all of the Friday the 13th movies, or at least the first 9 anyway. And I might have an on and off love-hate thing with Jason Goes to Hell, but at the same time, I can really appreciate the moments that I always like about that movie. And even the stuff that sometimes I'm kind of fair weather on, I can appreciate that they took some big swings with it. Manhattan, I stand with the argument that if too much of the movie had Manhattan stuff in it, so to say, like they were going to have him climb up the Statue of Liberty, he was going to interrupt a hockey game, and he was going to be at all these like landmarks in New York, I think that would have been short-term gain and long-term loss. That's my opinion. I think it would have been fun to watch the first time, and as the movie aged, I think that stuff would have looked really, really hokey after a while. Well, so, in my opinion, I'm glad that a good chunk of it took place on a ship, and the parts of it that did take place in Manhattan were a little more just on the street. Whether they were actually on Manhattan or if they were in Vancouver. I will say, as someone who lived in New York for a number of years and worked there as well, a good number of the stuff that they shot in Canada and where they just had to replicate a set, and that was just because of budget issues, it actually looked like late 80s Manhattan. Like I can tell you, from someone who traveled there as a kid with my parents and other family members all the time, and then who went there a lot in high school, and then who worked there after high school. Now, when I worked there, it was a later point where things were starting to get cleaned up, but there was still some pockets. But when I was a kid in there all the time, that was how Manhattan looked. Like if you weren't in, Macy's or a certain section of Times Square that was kind of shiny, that was what Manhattan looked like. It was seedy and kind of messed up and dirty and dingy, and it definitely doesn't look like what people think of now as Manhattan.
That's true too. And so, last thing on Friday the 13th Part 8, did the ending bother you? Because it didn't bother me. For me, it was like the finish. Like, there's no way he's coming back after this.
Well, when I first watched it, I still needed to learn the lore about the character, so I kind of just went with it. I was like, okay, this probably makes sense for this character because they showed that he drowned as a kid, and we established that that wasn't just water, but it was toxic waste, and he was melting. And so I wasn't. What they've said in the commentary, and I didn't realize it, I think it was the commentary, was that when you see him as a kid at the end and he's dead, that's not actually him. It's the main character, Rennie. She's still hallucinating because she was seeing all apparitions of him as a kid throughout the whole movie. So that's actually a final hallucination of hers showing that he's now dead. Like, it wasn't that he turned into a little boy. Like, he actually was melted and dead, and she was just seeing the hallucination no longer alive. And so that, to me, that made more sense because, especially with, she also had a narcotic in her system and she was kind of a little whacked out anyway by that point. Combine that with the fact that she was already having these strong hallucinations of him from when he was a boy and drowned. That was kind of just symbolic of, oh, okay, this actually laid him to rest. Whether it was going to be permanent or not, thrown aside, but that was just symbolic of, oh, he actually is dead. And she wasn't going to see these apparitions of him anymore because that part of her life and the trauma that she experienced when she was a kid and saw him in the lake can now be laid to rest.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. The potential that, the real Jason melted and what you saw was a hallucination of younger Jason, which looked normal. But, if you date back to the first movie, he was, horribly deformed.
Yeah. That so of course there's that continuity error there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess someone can make the argument. Someone can make the argument that he looks like that because he's in his resting place now. But he was supposed to be deformed. I mean, there definitely were continuity errors. I love the movie, but I'm still gonna, give credit where it's due, even if it's in a direction I'm not crazy about.
That's true. I guess I could accept that as Jason just melted away, but then, or maybe he escaped and went back to Camp Crystal Lake. And that's where Jason Goes to Hell picked up.
Yeah, personally, I think about Jason Goes to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed a lot of that movie, but I can definitely see a lot of the drawbacks. There were a lot of things that I love about that movie, and a lot of things I really don't like about that movie, and I go back and forth about it. I lean more towards liking the movie than not liking it. But there are definitely some things about it that I still will take issue with. And in my opinion, I think that if they had taken the runtime of that movie and made it like a good 20 or 30 minutes longer, really made a final send-off, and if they had taken those first 20 or 30 minutes and picked up in Manhattan, showed how he came back, and actually stuck with Jason as the main character for at least the first act of the movie. Didn't have to be the whole thing. And actually show him travel back to Crystal Lake, probably picking off quite a few people in the process.
Most likely.
And then eventually transition to what we saw. We would have seen what would have led up to why is the FBI after him. I think we would have gotten a more complete story, and people would have been more on board with the big swings and the completely out of right field stuff that takes place throughout the rest of the movie after that. If they had gotten enough of an exposition, so to say,
I think he just fixed Jason Goes to Hell. I think he just fixed the movie.
Well, I'm saying this stuff. Keep in mind what project I'm on. Now, that doesn't mean we're doing that, because that would have happened. That would have needed to happen in Jason Goes to Hell. It wouldn't make sense for it to be in this project. But a lot of those types of story beats where there's going to be a lot of development for development and or journey, so to say, for Jason, and also for a lot of other characters in the movie, that stuff is going to be a very strong component of the movie. Like, kind of, all right, here's an element of what we think would have worked in another movie. We can't do that. We can't exactly replicate that here because it wouldn't make sense. But what if we took that notion behind that and the spirit behind that and kind of added it into the story that we've got? Because this particular story, it's a sequel to 2 movies. Jason's Fury is the title of the movie. It's a sequel to both Jason Goes to Hell and also to Peter Anthony's film Roseblood, the fan film. And so it actually is a sequel to both at the same time. Now, if you think about that for a second, the years aren't going to add up on one straight line of logic, so to say.
Sure.
And this also takes place about 30 or 30 plus years after the events of Jason Goes to Hell.
So this takes place long before Jason X.
Yeah, like Jason X isn't really canon in this story. And if you really think about it, X really wasn't necessarily canon. It was kind of a standalone. It was like a what if. It was kind of its own thing, because where does that really make sense in the timeline with the other movies?
The answer is it does not.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's just so I kind of see Jason X as an Elseworlds type of film, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
I think it's one of those movies where you can enjoy it for what it is, but you really don't want to waste time trying to fit it into the timeline with the other films, unless you want to just chalk it up to being in another universe. Hence Elseworlds.
That's fair. And let's talk more about Jason Goes to Hell, because obviously behind you, which you already showed earlier in the video, is your Book of the Dead prop.
Yeah,
and the Book of the Dead was in Jason Goes to Hell. So can you explain that?
Yeah. You know what? Someone who explained it really well already did, and that was in the Friday the 13th Vengeance fan films. Did you see those by chance?
Send me links. I want to see them.
Okay, I will most certainly do it. I don't want to spoil it here, not only for you, but if there's anyone who's listening who didn't see those yet, I recommend that they're free on YouTube. Friday the 13th Vengeance. There are 2 parts to it, and they actually get into a backstory that shows where the Necronomicon comes into play. And I don't want to ruin it, because it's one of those you really should watch it on your own and experience that. It's kind of like watching the Never Hike Alone movies. Did you see the Never Hike Alone movies?
Not yet.
Okay. Same thing. That's a different Friday fan film franchise. Those are probably my 2 favorite ones right now. Never Hike Alone and Friday the 13th Vengeance. And they each have sequels and a whole bunch of stuff with them. They're totally separate stories from each other, made by different people.
Sure.
The only connective tissue is every now and then there's maybe a similar actor that'll pop up. But the writing, the directing, the story development, the storylines, that's all separate.
Gotcha.
But they're both very intriguing stories. But the Vengeance one does a great job of interweaving where the Necronomicon comes into play. It's not in the movie for very long. It's only in it for a small section, but it's effective, and it's kind of like, oh, that makes a lot of sense once you see it.
I like logic.
Yeah, you probably will enjoy those ones. And, then you can make the argument, are they supposed to be canon? Are they an Elseworlds type thing or whatnot? And you can kind of go either way, depending. But they're both very, very good stories.
Well, I'll watch them. You'll send me the links. I'll watch them, and then we'll talk.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of questions. You're going to have a lot of answers.
Sure. And that's, other than the fact that they were originally planning on having the Freddy versus Jason movie, had it come out in the 90s when they were originally talking about it, the original idea was for it to be Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Yes,
and there was
that was supposed to be a sequel.
And that's probably the reason that would have been a component of connective tissue then, but it just never happened. For one reason or another.
I want to talk to you about Freddy versus Jason. I love that movie.
Oh, really? Really?
I do. It was and the director, he directed Bride of Chucky. You already know that. I forget the director's name, but he directed Bride of Chucky, which is the 4th of the Child's Play series. And then he was asked to do Freddy versus Jason. He originally said, no, I'm not interested. and then Bob Shea from New Line was like, I want a different. You want to give a different perspective, and that's great. That's healthy. So go do it. So his whole pitch was like Freddy versus Jason meets WWF.
Yeah, that about
Talking
sums
and
it
just
up.
beating the crap out of each other like in a Mortal Kombat video game. The only thing
Yeah,
missing
it
was
was
Jim Ross and
basically
Jerry Lawler giving the commentary like, God Almighty.
yeah, it was basically like a kaiju film, but with regular sized people. You know.
Only the only regret was no Kane Hodder. That broke my heart.
Yeah, now I'm not crazy about them. There are some things that I like in it, but there are some things that are that kind of kill that movie for me. The main one, or one of the main ones, was the fact that they screwed Kane Hodder over and like
Yes.
didn't cast him, and the way they did it, like they did him dirty, and I just didn't appreciate that. So walking into that movie, I already had a slightly skewed view of it. Thinking in my mind, like, okay, the best possible person right now who you could have gotten to connect these movies to the last four Friday the 13th movies, and for one legal reason or another, or just someone's preference for that matter, you decided to screw him over. And that's no disrespect to what was it, Derek Mears who took on the role.
He did a decent job, but we wanted Kane.
Yeah, actually, I liked him. Because he was him in the remake as well, in the '09 one, right? Wasn't that also Derek Mears? Oh, okay. For whatever reason, I thought it was the same person. And that's where my knowledge of the actor starts to get a little hazy, because I really liked the actor who played him in the 2009 remake. My problem with the in Freddy versus Jason, I thought they did a really bad representation of Jason. They clearly had no problem representing Freddy because it was New Line. They knew what to do with Freddy. Yes. And they even, a good amount of the time, they made him a little more like the earlier films. Not the whole time. There were some moments where he still got kind of silly, but there were those other moments that were a little darker and kind of like a callback to the first 2 or 3 Nightmare films, which I like. I like dark, sinister Freddy, and I like him a lot more than funny MTV Freddy, you know?
We're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street once we're done talking Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Jason,
oh, yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, yeah. But as much as they did a good job with Freddy, I thought they dropped the ball with Jason. They gave him some cool kill scenes, but outside of that, it was like, it seemed like the people behind it thought that's all they had to do, was give him some cool kill scenes, and then everything else doesn't matter. It's kind of like, put a little pin in this as well, it's kind of like the 2021 Mortal Kombat film. Oh, we gave it an R rating and included fatalities. We're just not going to tell everyone else the rest of the movie sucks, because they won't care.
I like the Mortal Kombat movie from 2021.
Oh, yeah? My thing was... I can get into
better
it, but
than the
my
PG-13 version we got back in the 90s.
You know, I liked that version, and I thought it did a better job with the characters. I'll get back to that in a minute. I know that we kind of rabbit holed a little bit, but with Freddy versus Jason, other than the fact that they gave him some really cool kill scenes, I thought they kind of got Jason wrong. I didn't like the costume. I thought that they made him look. It was kind of like a lazy costume. If you looked at any of the previous renditions of Jason, there were all these attentions to detail on the clothes he was wearing, the way the mask was, and even the way he carried himself. And the costume combined with however he was there. Oh yeah, that's like top tier,
100%.
But yeah, but how the director obviously told him that he was supposed to move and act. They made him a little too much like Frankenstein's monster, like to where he was slow and cumbersome. And because he was slow and cumbersome, first of all, he was never like that in any of the other movies. In the first four movies, the ones in which he was an adult anyway, he was running after you. And then second of all, in the other films, when he wanted to, he could move pretty damn fast. Like, and that was especially shown in 7 and 8, where he might not necessarily run, but once he wanted to get a hold of you, he had no problem doing it, and he'd bolt and he'd grab a hold of you pretty damn quick.
Absolutely.
And that's what was missing for me, because he was just so. It was almost like he was moving through water, and I didn't like that rendition of him, especially once the fight at the end took place. I understand Freddy having the upper hand in the dream world. That makes complete and total sense.
Yep.
But once they ended up in the real world, Jason should have had the upper hand there, and it was like New Line didn't want Freddy to lose, basically, because Freddy was New Line. And there was where I was kind of like, all right, I can see what you're doing here. You don't want your golden boy to lose. And once it became a kung fu match between Freddy, who all of a sudden became Pai Mei with claws, and Jason, who was this slow-moving Frankenstein who like couldn't land a single hit on him after a while, that was where I like really checked out. That was like I was literally getting mad in the theater. I was like, "This," I was the guy who was sitting there. There's other people enjoying it. I'm sitting like, "This is bullshit,"
You poor guy.
Yeah, like I was getting like literally mad and heated as it was going, and that was so the final act I really wasn't a fan of because it totally misrepresented both characters to me. Freddy was never a martial arts hero with acrobatic skills, and Jason was never. Bless you. And Jason was never Frankenstein's monster in slow motion. That was where it kind of fell for me.
You know what? I admire your perspective. It opened my eyes a little bit because I'm thinking. I mean, I have my perspective, you have yours, and it's like open my eyes a little bit. It's like he's right. He's right. It's like he did walk like Frankenstein. And
it's one of those,
like,
like
maybe
when
he should
someone
have had
says
more creative kill scenes.
Yeah.
Other than just with machete
cool,
just chopping people up.
Yeah. I mean, the cornfield scene was cool, but once that was done, it was like they didn't really know what to do with Jason, except make him a plot point for Freddy, you know? And that was where they started to lose me. The couple of times that Freddy took somebody out in that movie, I thought was very effective. When he killed the one guy in the redheaded guy, when he killed him, I thought that was probably one of the most effective scenes in the entire movie. Especially because by that point you like that character and you don't want him to die. Was it the redheaded guy or was it the other guy, the friend, the younger guy? But the person that he killed, and I believe it started in the bathroom, but then he
right and
catches fire.
Right, and his brother Bobby, was a
yes.
nightmare sequence, and then it was really Freddy, obviously.
Yeah, that was the redheaded guy was the brother, and it was really Freddy. Got it. Yeah.
Fun fact, you already know, but he played Scott Farkas from Christmas Story.
Yes. But that moment I thought was probably the best part of the movie, to be honest, because it was the most loyal movie to the characters. That was the most Freddy that Freddy was in that entire movie. And it was the most of either of those characters, like as far as an honest representation.
I just thought of a funny scene. You were talking. So we're talking about this young guy, and do you remember the scene in the mental hospital where he's acting like a monkey, showing his bare ass?
Oh, you're talking about 12 Monkeys?
No. I'm talking about the kid who got burned in the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're
earlier in the movie.
Now,
he was showing his ass, pointing at the virgin.
Yeah. All right.
That was hilarious. If you watch the Never Sleep Again documentary, which is like 9 hours long.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's great, man. It's been a while, but it was awesome. Yeah.
I still own it. And it's like, if I ever need my nightmare fix, I go right to that.
I remember it was on Netflix at one point.
He bragged about it's like, a lot of people saw my bum.
Yeah. I'm remembering this now.
Unfortunately, we have.
Yeah. That's a fantastic documentary.
I love it. And you know what? I'll probably watch it again real soon. And speaking of Freddy, ta-da.
Oh, nice. That one
I have that adapter where you can play 4 players.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I never got to play that one. So that's still one that I got to check out at some point. I did play the Friday one because that was available at the rental place that I was near. And it was kind of one of those, oh, man, there's a Friday the 13th game. And so until I eventually bought it.
Creating opportunities right now. You know that?
Yeah.
It's like, I haven't played this game. I was like, I'm eager just to help you play those games.
Yeah. No, I'd be very interested in checking out because I've heard good things about it. I heard it was a really good game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Shout out to Angry Video Game Nerd. He did do Freddy and Jason respectively. I'll send you the links later.
All right, awesome.
And I thought they were good. I mean, you and I played those games long before, and at that age, and it's like he just, 20 years ago, just rehashed it. And I thought it was great, and I'll just send you the links, and I hope you enjoy them.
Oh yeah, I'll absolutely check those out. I'd like to see those, man.
So, you ready to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah. I was going to say, I think you were going to circle back to that. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go right up front. Number 6 is my all-time favorite.
Oh, really?
Not Final Nightmare.
Wow. Wow, you got a nice hot take going there, man. So you're talking about Freddy's Dead?
Yes, I call it
Wow,
Nightmare
wow.
6.
Gotcha. So we're kind of on the so you're obviously more of like the humor component of Freddy and that stuff,
Yes
which
and
is
no, but
fine.
it was
Like,
also the first Nightmare movie I ever saw, and I watched the others, and it's like,
okay,
you know what, 6 still holds, still tugs at my heart.
I hear that's the same thing with it. I'll that's probably the reason why Jason Takes Manhattan is one that is special to me.
Me too.
Like there's that first experience, so it becomes that core memory, and it's one of those. Look, I know it's got its issues, but I still love that movie type of thing.
Yes.
So I absolutely can respect that. It's not my favorite one, but I can absolutely respect someone's opinion on the matter.
What I loved was the cameos. First of all, I loved. I'm a gamer, so it's obvious. I love the
Yeah,
scene with Spencer, being
that
high and passed
that
out, and
is
now he's in a video game.
hysterical. Yeah, be like me, be like me, be like me with the dad.
Now I'm playing with power.
Yeah,
And you know what? In fact, I'm not the show off, but when Robert England was holding this during our photo op, and that's what he said. Instead of cheese, was like, "Now I'm playing with power."
that's great.
And you know what I said right after the photo? Great graphics.
And he had the power glove, right? And
That's right. Hey, you forgot the power glove.
that was fucking great. Yeah,
It was.
that was
It's
one of the most hysterical things.
chef's kiss.
Yeah, that
So
was
what's your favorite?
absolutely hysterical.
What was your
Mine,
favorite?
I would have to say, the first one and the second one combined.
I love
There,
two.
yeah, two is awesome. I think it is a very underappreciated film, and the reason I'm saying both, I can't really say that I definitely like one better. I can't say I definitely like two better. One has got the original idea, and I love the atmosphere in one. Um, But I will say that there's that part of me that really wishes that they went with the original ending of it. Now that I know about it, at least, where the whole scene where he pulls her through the door
Yes.
wasn't supposed to happen.
I think it was just the car driving away, right?
Yep, it was. It looked like she just resolved it, and she drove away, whether you knew it was her dream or not. And you saw the girls jumping rope, and then it just ended, and it left it very ambiguous. That was what Robert England. That was what Wes Craven
Was Craven.
wanted. That
Yes.
was his idea, and then the studio forced him to put a little bit of a zinger in there to tease the potential for a sequel.
Yeah, that was Bob Shea. He was like, "I want my
Yeah,
hook,"
yeah, and
and then
unfortunately,
Wes Craven was like, "All right, fine, I'll give you your hook."
yeah, and it was one of those things that they didn't need for a sequel. Like they could have ended it the other way. That's the one, in my opinion, that is the one weak part of that movie because it kind of messes up the logic of the rest of the film. In my opinion, like
That's debatable, but okay.
yeah, like and not necessarily 100% so because if you're kind of in the dream world, I mean there are still like layers of possibilities of how things can go down. And by that point they hadn't even really fully established like, the rules so to say. So but it kind of just went against the logic of oh she was able to beat him in that particular way and then all of a sudden it's like well she did but she didn't. And then when you pick up with the sequel, you're with totally different people. Like, well, if she didn't beat him, wouldn't he have still been killing people after that? And that's where you kind of run into that. Well, wait a minute, huh? And if they had done the ending without him pulling her through the door, the one that Wes specifically wanted, all right, it could have been the logic of he might be weakened right now and just kind of need a little time to recover or something
Yeah.
like that. And okay, a year or two later, things pick up with a different group of people. And that would have further explained why he then had that reason to want to be in someone's body and make his way into the real world because he could have been in a potentially weakened state. But I love two.
Oh,
I,
two's great.
I like the pacing better in part one. I think part one is a much better paced film because there are moments in two where it does kind of drag a little bit. I'll be very honest about that, but I still really, really like the story. I like the characters in part two. I think the characters are fantastic. And there's just a certain atmosphere that is very dark and unsettling in part two. I think actually, as much as I love the music in part one that Charles Bernstein did, the score in part two is very different. It doesn't call back the first movie at all, but there's something really sinister and unnerving about the music in part two. There's something about it that like kind of gets under your skin.
Yep, you're right. And I'm thinking about it now. You're right.
Yeah,
Absolutely
and
right.
I love the whole final act of that when he the whole attack at the poolside. I love the look of Freddy in that movie, where half the time instead of the glove, it's like a burned hand just with the blade
Yep.
sticking through the fingers. I love the red eyes that they gave him. Like they articulated his cheekbones and his nose a certain way. I think two is the best look for Freddy. I think it's the scariest, and there were just so many moments in that movie that like really have Freddy at his darkest and his most sinister,
Yep.
in my opinion.
I
You know,
absolutely agree.
yeah, and that was something I felt that way since I first saw the movie. Like it wasn't something that like I thought of, many years after watching it. This is one of those. As soon as I first saw it, it was like something's different about this movie, and I'm actually here for it. And there's something really, really like just unsettling about how I can't put my finger on it, but there's something very unnerving about how this is playing out in front of me.
No, I'm just having a moment of going back down memory lane and watching those movies. Do you have the DVD box set that came with the 3D glasses?
No, no, I don't have that. I know it exists, but I don't
Here's
have
another
that.
thing that really bothers me about physical media today. Blu-rays, etc. The
Yeah,
lack
yeah.
of special features.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I am 100% there with you, man. And it really annoys the hell out of me that for a while, if you recall, when they were switching over to Blu ray and you still had your DVD player and had no problem just buying the DVD version or something. If you noticed, for about a decade almost, we had a situation where you'd get the DVD version and it wouldn't have any special features,
Yep.
except maybe the trailer, which is a bullshit special feature.
Those
And
are the early days.
yeah, like they basically treated it like it was 1997 all of a sudden. And the Blu-ray would have all the special features, but of course that's a about $15-20 hike from the DVD at the time. And now they're doing the exact same thing with 4K, where Blu-rays are now having either no special features or maybe one or two, and then it's the ultra high def 4K version that you got to get all the special features, and half of them are online. And I'm like really? That was actually the reason I was going to get a copy of Furiosa because I really enjoyed the hell out of that movie. Still going to get it, but I saw that the 4K version had all these special features. Blu-ray version still has special features, but there were like one or two that looked pretty lengthy that were only on the 4K version, and it was like the Blu-ray was already going to cost like what $30 or something like that,
Something like that.
35. So the 4K one was like 45 or $50. I'm like, all right, that's a lot of money for one movie, and I would have paid a fraction of that a number of years ago for everything that you're giving me in this movie right now. And that's not even an inflation thing. That's just that's how it was thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, oh, very much. Yeah, there are some that defy that. I was very disappointed when Evil Dead Rise came out because I wanted to buy that not only to have a hard copy of it, but I was hoping there'd be all these behind the scenes featurettes, especially because of some of the stuff they do in that movie. Nothing, like absolutely nothing, and I find that kind of insulting to the audience. Now, it's not the filmmaker's fault, it's the distributor's fault.
Yes.
But I find that really, really disheartening. And obviously, a big part of that is streaming because they don't want to put the extra money that it would cost into actually putting those features in. Or at least that's what I think it is. That's my hypothesis there. That's at least one of the reasons why, because so many people are just getting something on streaming. Why put the extra effort into how much it's going to cost to put it on Blu-ray or whatever physical format it's going to be? I could be off on that. I could be wrong, but
That could be
I
the
would be
reason why the
surprised.
4K discs are cost more.
Yeah,
Because everyone is sticking with streaming, and unfortunately, I'm one of them. But not to go off topic, but I'm at a point financially where I can just I have a lot more financial freedom where I could just buy a 4K disc or a box set if I want to. But
yeah,
I'm in no hurry. I'm just enjoying the moment.
yeah. I mean, and I still have streaming stations. I got plenty of them. But me personally, I I like having that insurance policy of a physical copy of something.
Yes.
You know, and that's whether it's the most up to date copy of it or if it's a version of it that came out 10 years ago, depending on what the movie is. Example: I still have the Alien quadrilogy box set that came out in, what was it, the 90s or early 2000s?
Wait a minute, DVD or Blu-ray?
DVD.
Blu-ray. Get the Blu-ray box set because it has tons of special features.
Oh yeah, I've heard about them. Now there's a million special features. There's like probably 5 hours worth of special features, if not more, on the DVD set.
Okay, so you're an Aliens fan too, I assume.
Oh, I love Aliens. Yeah,
Okay, so
love
of the
Aliens.
four, which is your favorite?
I would say it's a toss up between the first two. Same answer as for Nightmare, and that's two is like that's a very sound answer.
I love them both equally for different reasons. Because the first was the haunted house, and the second was the roller coaster.
Yeah, I love both of them, and for different reasons. So, like one's more straight horror if I'm in the mood for that, and especially the atmosphere that Ridley Scott sets up. That's what I'm going to watch. But if I want more of the action, it's going to obviously be Aliens. So I go back and forth, but the one that I watch more often would be Aliens. That would be the one that's my more frequent watch, and that movie. That movie is a movie I've easily seen over 100 times. Like,
I've seen all of them 100 times.
Yeah. I mean, I can say I've seen the other ones quite a bit, but that one, like, if you had like a little bar graph or something, that's the one that's going to be way, way up. I could watch that movie over and over again and not get tired of it, like, ever.
As a matter of fact, you reminded me of something. Oh, here it is. Let me just get this for you real quick.
Oh, nice. I'm actually looking to get that, actually. I've been seeing they've been advertising for it again. So I'm hoping to actually pick that guy up.
Do yourself a favor. Get the 2-disc.
That's what I was hearing.
If they're still available, I already bought two copies. One for myself and one for a friend of mine for early birthday gift. As long as she doesn't see this episode, then there's no spoilers here.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
So you're a big Aliens fan. That's great to know because once again, going back to video games, I have Alien video games I think you're going to love to play.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to get some of the more recent ones.
That's what I'm talking about.
But what do you call? I didn't get Fireteam Elite yet, and I know that there was the other one. Dark Descent was the other one, if I'm correct, right? Okay, good to know.
No, well, because it's point and click. I hate those types of games.
Okay. I can see that being frustrating with a controller. Yeah. And I'm not going to
move the character, not point and click.
Yeah, yeah. The clock tower effect. Yeah, no, I gotcha. As much as I love the game Clock Tower, but having it for a game like Aliens, I can see that being frustrated because you're probably going to be swarmed by a bunch of enemies.
I would love to see you play Alien Isolation.
I got that. That's on. I bought that in the what do you call it? I bought the definitive, so I've got all of the complete collection of it. And that's edition. The one. What's up?
The Nostromo edition.
Yeah, whatever one included everything, including the Nostromo stuff. I got the one that has all of it, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to play it for a while, but it was one of those, this is on sale, I want to get this now types of situations. And so I've got it, and it's one of those, when I have a good block of time, probably this summer or something, I want to be able to just sit and play it straight through. Not straight through, but like over a period of a few days and kind of get the whole thing in one shot. Because that's something I'm not going to want to start playing and then not be able to return to for a few months. That's going to be just frustrating,
That's good. It's very time consuming, just so you know.
Yeah.
But you'll just appreciate everything the game has to offer.
Yeah. I did play like a few minutes worth of it a while back. That was when I realized, okay, I need to just not play this now. I need to have a huge block of time. And so I stopped. But just a little bit where the aesthetic of the spaceships is like the exact look of everything you see in the first film. It was one of the most impressive things. I was very, very impressed with the layout of that game. And so I do want to get back to that.
Oh, wait a minute.
But yeah, Aliens is my favorite of the bunch. Not my favorite, like both movies are my favorite, but my most watched of the bunch for sure.
Aliens. I almost forgot. I think Alien Isolation is getting a sequel.
It is.
I think so.
Okay. Wow. So we're continuing with. Oh, wow. Okay. I hope that would be something I'd be interested in seeing. It's also something that the people making the more recent movies should probably follow on and maybe try to tie into, which would be really cool. I wasn't crazy about some of the stuff that happened in Romulus. There were some things I really liked, and then there were other things where I was kind of like, I don't know about this.
Tell me about the. I don't know about this. I'm now you
So,
got my attention for sure.
so the main thing that I had a problem with, actually, there were two things. Main thing I had a problem with. I'll start with this: the dialogue that was trying to be a callback to the other films. That not a single one of those callback lines worked for me. They all landed like a lead balloon for me because they were like, because they were just Easter egg, like kind of what a studio thinks is fan service. You know, it's the studio's version of fan service, and it's one of those. That's not what I want to see. That's another movie. It worked in the other movie. To quote Bert in The Return of the Living Dead, well, it ain't working now. You know, and I like every single one. Like like every line that was a callback line. I just did an eye roll when I was in the theater, especially the "Get away from her, you bitch." That line, I probably did more than an eye roll. I might have muttered like, "Oh fuck," like under my breath or something like that. So I hate when movies do that nonsense, and it doesn't actually have anything to do with the characters, the story, or anything in that exact moment. But the other thing, I was actually really happy when they were first landing on that ship, and there was like a 36-hour window. They were like, okay, we got to get on, we got to do this thing, we got to get this stuff and get off. I thought they were going to just get delayed because of what was going to happen, still have the 36 hours and have to like hold up and hide somewhere for a bit, and that they were going to meet other survivors, including probably some mercenaries or members of the Colonial Marines who came in there to try and stop it, which would have actually made sense. Not only did that not happen, but then this comedy of errors ends up taking place that causes them to crash their ship into that ship, and all of a sudden we're in self-destruct sequence mode. And that was my other eye roll. I was like, oh, great. So now we got, 40 minutes, and now we got, the countdown without the countdown actually happening. So this is just a retread of part 1, part 2, and part 4 with, all right, well, we're not going to blow it up, but we'll crash it. Like, I see what you're doing, so that really annoyed me because I liked that they had more time. It was like, okay, they'll just, this is what they have to do. We didn't need to speed that up. They could have had the story take place organically, cover more ground, cover more story, involve characters that probably should have been there, and not been in such a damn rush. And that would have enabled the story to not speed up the life cycle of the xenomorph in a way that was absolutely absurd. I mean, we've seen it sped up or, not exactly the same time before, where instead of like a day or two, it takes a number of hours. But we've never seen it take a couple of minutes. Like, it literally took a couple of minutes for that girl to all of a sudden hatch the facehugger. And that made no sense. Like, literally made, like, absolutely no sense, except that happened because the plot needed it to.
I guess so. So I think Romulus is getting a sequel, but what I'm also looking for, just like you, is Alien Earth.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I saw the teaser for it, and I purposely have stayed away from anything else. I know that a longer teaser or a trailer has come out, I believe, but I purposely am kind of just not watching anything. I'd rather go in as cold as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel the same. Yeah, I avoid that stuff, dude.
Yeah, and it's bad enough when on Facebook and wherever else, you don't even have to click into something to see this to know that something's spoiled because some jackass will put the spoiler of an ending in an image on a thumbnail, or that plus the words of what happened. And it's like, thank you for ruining the movie for anybody who wasn't even going to click into your video but happened to scroll by it.
Trolls is what they are.
Yeah. I'd use the word asshole, but yeah, like I can't stand when it happens.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. I can't stand when it happens. I like going into a movie knowing as little as possible. In at least most cases, there are some exceptions to that, and a lot of times the exception might be if I think it's going to be a bad movie, maybe I need a little persuasion. But outside of that, I like walking into a movie with as little of the movie having been shown to me before I'm watching the movie. the trailer shouldn't be a miniature version of the movie. That's my take, you know?
Well, like you said, just you did a good job, as I did, staying away from anything related from a marketing perspective regarding Alien Earth. I'm going to continue to do that, and then when the show airs, we'll talk, you and I.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
No,
now
I
I know
definitely
you're a hardcore Alien fan like I am. It's like, oh, we got a
yeah.
lot to talk about then.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm also a teacher. I'm a music teacher at an elementary school. And I'm not exactly the kind of teacher who's going to be having people do hot cross buns anytime soon, in case you haven't figured that out. And so we're actually, for a concert in a few days, we're going to be performing a bunch of stuff. And this is like anyone from age kindergarten through fifth grade. I happen to have kindergarten through fourth grade right now. And some of the older grades are playing some more complicated stuff with me, and that includes music from the Aliens score. Like, we're actually playing Ripley's Rescue from Aliens. We would have played Feudal Escape, but I had the feeling that the rhythm was going to throw them off a little much. So we're already dealing with 5/4 time in certain parts of Ripley's Rescue, but that was at least manageable. Yeah, we're doing that, and I did it with a previous group where this time around we're just doing drums just due to time constraints. The last time we did this with a different group of students, different time of the school year, they did the drum part, but I had students actually record on piano a bunch of the string parts of that song as well. And so all of the stuff that was used in the scene where they're in the ventilation shaft, and in the scene earlier where they're, where she's driving the car away, there were moments of that they literally, note for note, were able to get on the piano, and I just plugged in a string sound for them. And,
I love that music when Ripley's driving the car at Aliens. It's just, you could feel it.
Yeah, it's one of the, in my opinion, one of the best scores ever made. Like, I've got a lot of favorites, but James Horner's score to Aliens is top tier. I don't see anything surpassing that. There might be something that I'll decide that I like as much as it, but I'm not going to say I could like anything better than that. That's one of my all-time favorite film scores, like top tier, bar none.
Absolutely. When I was younger, back in the '90s, I used to have the soundtracks on CD, and I would listen to it to relax.
Yeah,
it's like, you can't just zip through the scene you want to see like you can right now with streaming and Blu-rays.
Yeah,
you had VHS. That's all you had.
Yep.
That was my workaround.
Yeah. The scores to the other movies are very good as well, but the one to Aliens is my favorite of the bunch, like, easily.
Oh, what about the scene where the second dropship flies into the processing station, and you see the lightning?
Oh yeah, that's an awesome scene. The gearing up track where it leads to where she's in the elevator and going down and getting.
Well, before that, she's just trying to get her weapons ready.
Yeah,
and then she's like,
I don't want to hear about it, Bishop. She's alive. Yeah, no, I
Hicks,
know
don't let her leave. Oh, we ain't going anywhere.
We're going anywhere. Yeah, that is an awesome track. The other thing we did with some of the older classes, I couldn't do this with second graders or something, but some of the older classes, we actually watched a good chunk of the movie as well. Because the way I did it, the way my thought process was, I experienced the music by watching the movie when I was a kid. And I was actually right around the age that these kids are. And so, in my opinion, I'm like, well, that's the best way to experience it. You need to see and to hear and experience and physically feel how that impacts you while you're watching the movie.
Exactly.
And so we watched a good chunk of it. Now, granted, I still need to keep a job. And so I've seen that movie so many times that I was literally able to time out every curse word in the movie and have my finger right on the mute button of the computer that we were playing through a projector. So every now and then, I knew exactly where it was coming.
Because you've seen the movie so many times like I have.
Yep. Yeah, and then there would be those moments where Hudson's on screen, and I just kind of keep it on mute for about 40 seconds. I'll be like, he's just saying what everyone's thinking right now. It's okay. I'll turn it back on in a second.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you're not insulting your students' intelligence. It's like, they're saying bad things, just use your imagination.
Yeah. Oh, and I told them right out of the gates ahead of time, like, I'm going to have to play the mute button. You know why? Mr. C still needs to keep his job, okay?
No, you know what? I really appreciate the fact that you play Aliens in front of your students, and then you have a mute button. It's like, just use your imagination. And you're not something either. I really appreciate that.
And the one scene that I'd have to skip, just because if someone walked into the room at that time, there'd be a long conversation afterwards, the chest burster scene.
I was just about to ask you.
Yeah, that was the one that I'd have to kind of click and drag and be like, all right. I either wouldn't say anything because I'd be able to time it out in a way that like they wouldn't even notice it because I'm so damn used to how to do it, or if something distracted me and I had to deal with a student or something and that timing wouldn't work, I'd be like, this is the one scene, guys, that I have to skip. Get permission from home if you want to watch it at some other point in time. Click, drag. But can we watch it? No.
And what's to stop your students from going home and then going on Disney Plus watching the movie on their own?
That's exactly my point. And so I always have the disclaimer because 9 times out of 10, the students are going to watch something 100 times worse than that without anyone's permission at home. I've had second graders ask me if we could watch Terrifier, and to which my answer was like, yeah, no, not happening. And I'd be like flat out honest, and I'd always tell them it's not that I don't watch that kind of stuff. And I'm aware that you already have seen it. It's that I need to keep my job. Okay.
Exactly. It's like you want to, but your job, we got to keep your job. You got to feed your family.
Yeah. But, we were able to do it with Aliens. We did the same thing with Godzilla -1, actually. I had them watch that, and because we're playing music from Godzilla as well. We're playing some of the music from the original film that was also reprised in -1 from Akira Ifukube.
A question about Godzilla. Are you an expert?
I'm not going to say that I am. There were so many movies in between the earlier and later films that were like the Showa era and like kind of the sillier ones and whatnot.
Yeah.
Dude, there was someone in my class, one of my students, knew all the monsters from that era and was like rattling them off one after another, like Sheldon Cooper style. I was like, that's impressive, but we have to move on and talk about something else because we have very limited time to learn this song.
No, I'm asking because like Evil Dead, I'm trying to master Godzilla.
Yeah.
Just because I've seen the more recent movies and they're fantastic.
Yeah. The original one is still one of the best ones. That movie's absolutely awesome. No. I'm glad we're having this conversation. There are 2 versions of that movie. The original version, which was a strictly Japanese dialogue film. If you don't understand Japanese, you watch it with English subtitles, and that's your only option.
Fine by me.
Yeah, came out in 1954, released in Japan. The version that came out in 1955 that they retitled Godzilla King of the Monsters and released in the United States is a butchered version of that film.
You said butchered?
Butchered.
So can I skip it or no?
I would. It's basically... I remember because that's the version I first saw when I was a kid. I just thought that was the movie. And then I rented it from a library. And it was the real version. And I was like, wait a minute, where's the main character that was in the version that I... Because the main character in that version is a white guy that they inserted into the movie as a reporter. And so the whole time, like, there's this white guy that you follow, and they literally overdub dialogue of other characters and completely change what they're saying to make it a conversation with the white guy who's not even on the same screen as them.
Oh, my God.
And who they just keep cutting back to because they needed their white protagonist to be the hero, basically.
Oh,
not even the hero, but not even the hero, just the main character.
Right.
And, because apparently an audience was too stupid to be able to see something through the lens of a Japanese person. But
I guess the average moviegoer, I guess.
Yeah, especially at the time.
Sure.
So the scenes take place out of order, and then there's that bullshit that I just mentioned. I would avoid that at all costs because it's the most inferior version of that movie that you could possibly imagine, unless there's a cut of, like you see Godzilla for 2 seconds, and then for no reason whatsoever, someone walks on screen and starts taking a crap. I mean, that's probably the only other version that would be worse than that. Watch the original Japanese version. It's just Godzilla. It's actually in the Japanese spelling, Gojira. And it came out in 1954, Japanese dialogue only, English subtitles, not called King of the Monsters. That's the version you want to see.
Okay, so going forward, whenever I text you, I say, hey, I'm going to start watching Godzilla. I'll watch the first one, like you said, and then once I'm done, I'll text you back and say, okay, which one's next? What do you pick?
Yeah. The other thing is you'll hear a bunch of... You're going to help me. Yeah. You'll hear in the real version a bunch of references to the atomic bomb and Nagasaki and Hiroshima. All of that is taken out of the Americanized King of the Monsters version because we couldn't make the United States look bad now, could we? Basically, the entire subtext of the movie that's the creation of Godzilla is taken out of the movie because they didn't want, the United States to look like they might have done anything wrong in a movie.
You're talking about King of the Monsters.
Yeah, yeah, the bad
But you
version.
said stay away. Stay away.
I wouldn't watch that one at all. Like maybe if you were being paid money, but outside of that, I'd stay away from it. Yeah, just the real version, Godzilla, aka Gojira, 1954.
I'll look it up
Um,
and then get back to you. And one last thing, and then we'll wrap up because the episodes usually run about an hour and a half.
yeah,
And don't
yeah,
worry, I mean talked about a lot of movies in a very short period of time. I expect you to come back in a future episode, and of course
awesome,
I'll
awesome.
let you know because I'm now finally get to learn more about you, in this format rather than just on set or at a convention.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get more time to interact.
Well, yeah, when we got to talk to like 20 other people and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And it's like, holy crap, this guy really knows his movies. It's like, okay, good. I like a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, and it's obviously there's some stuff that I don't know about that you very clearly are very very well versed in.
Well, we help
So
each other
we'll
out,
be
right?
able to we'll be able to have a good exchange. Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely.
Yeah, everybody wins. I like that.
Yeah,
So we'll get you back on another future episode.
awesome. That sounds great to me, man.
Anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug?
Um, Other than if there's anybody who wants to check it out, keep an eye out for Hunt Chase Kill when that comes out.
Great movie.
And also Swine and Dine, which is going to start making its rounds in the film festival soon. I know that they're almost done with the final edits
They are.
to that.
They are.
They are. Oh,
Ron and
good.
Chris already have the movie, I believe.
Oh, awesome.
Did you ever meet
So
Mark
those are
Sorrow
the-
from Trimungus?
What's up?
Mark Sorrow from Trimungus?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I was
Mark.
just over his house last night. I was over there for about 3 hours.
He was the guy running the sound on it, right? Or editing it over the last few weeks or whatnot, right?
That is correct.
Because I know he was also on set.
And I had to tell him, I was like, stop what you're doing. I don't want to see this movie. I want to wait until the premiere. And he's
Got
like,
it. Yeah, I will be there for that if unless it's on the other side of the country and I can't be there for traveling reasons. My plan is whatever date it's going to be, I want to be there. You know.
Ron and Chris are going to be the first to tell me. It's like, okay, here's the premiere. Come on over.
Awesome.
And,
awesome.
and hopefully you'll be there too. We can just catch up in person. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what that looks like because I know Mark knows his stuff as far as being able to do his thing, and so I want to see what he was able to do with that film. I mean, it already looked good in the version that I got, which was a more raw version of it, but I can only imagine what he's done with it between now and then.
Just expect to be pleasantly surprised.
Awesome.
Because that's what I'm expecting too.
Yeah. I guess the one other thing I'd plug in is June 13th. That's when the Indiegogo for Jason's Fury is going to go live. And that one, we're going to try to put it in high demand. So if the more people we get to contribute on day one, the closer that is to happening. Even if each person contributes like $5 or something like that, if it goes in high demand, it'll let us run the campaign for a longer period of time, like as in like a couple of months more. And we'll be able to
send me the link when we're done here, and then so I can make a contribution myself. Because
absolutely.
Well, you and I both love Friday the 13th, obviously. I think a mutual friend of ours is also in the movie. Ilson 4K, I think.
Ilson. Yeah, Ilson plays a key character in the movie as well. He plays a very significant character. Yep, not going to tell you who he is. I'm just saying that he's not like a side character. He's not an extra. He plays a very important character in the film.
And he bragged about this on Facebook about how this is like a dream come true for him.
Yeah, because I believe he's also a Good Friday fan. Yeah. We got a couple of people. Ilson's in it. I believe Mark is going to be in it as well. Haynes, that is.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's going to...
Swine and Dine.
Yeah, he I believe, has also been cast.
Who?
I believe he has also been cast. Mark. He's playing at least one character in the film, if I recall correctly.
I'm glad he's here doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Real cool guy.
He was just absolute professional and a gentleman on set.
Yeah.
I was like, do you need anything? No, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, and I know that he wasn't feeling well at all.
No. It was freezing cold, and he only had like a blanket to wrap around, and he's so big, and he's got like not a 6-pack, but an 8-pack, and the blanket couldn't fit. I'm like, oh, that poor guy.
Well, he was real sick from he was under the weather as a result of just kind of being run down. He had recently filmed this big scene for Amityville Barbie, if I recall correctly, and then he went almost straight from that to Swine and Dine.
He was in Amityville Barbie as well.
I think so. I think that was the film that he came from, not directly from one set to another, but I believe he was on that. Oh, it might have been a different movie, but I'm almost positive that was the movie. But he was on that right before he started heading over to do his stuff for Swinendine, and
I'm
he
going to
was
have to
already.
contact the first AD, Alex, about this. She's also one of my BFFs.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
that
Alex is
channel.
great. She knows her stuff. Really knows her stuff.
Look, if you work alongside Alex, she knows exactly what she's doing. She's well planned. She's well coordinated. She's
Yeah,
very, very ill equipped, ready to go at any time.
yeah,
And she's told
yeah.
me stories.
Very, very, very professional.
100%. It's like, whenever I work for her on any movie, it's just like, follow this person. He or she will guide you, will take care of you.
Yeah. But my point, yeah, like he was already feeling pretty sick, even not counting the fact that we had kind of crappy weather that night. And then
Man.
the prosthetic that he had to have on his face, he was only able to breathe through his mouth, and he was already very congested. And so the whole time he was kind of like, his throat was probably very raw from that, and he was, congested and not able to do anything about it. So he powered through because he's just he's a strong guy, mentally and physically strong guy,
He's
and
a
he's
trooper.
very yeah, and he's just a very, very professional individual.
100%. I hope he gets to do more projects here here in the East Coast, Jersey, Delaware, PA. You know what I mean? I hope so.
Yeah,
Because, again, he's just fun to be around.
yeah, yeah, good individual.
And you'd be surprised what he teach you.
Yeah,
Anything else you want to plug?
I guess that's it. I know we're probably at that time, and anything that was like critical and time sensitive, I definitely mentioned already.
Wasn't the wait worth it though? Because we tried this twice before we got it right.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of one of those. Okay, take one. Sound's not working. Oh no, picture's not working. You just saw black. Take two. Sound's not working, and you're skipping around. Take three. All right, maybe we should just try this in another location.
Hey, it worked out though.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you got me, and you were able to hear me, and my face wasn't doing this.
Oh no, I mean, there were a couple instances, but it didn't last very long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks a lot for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, I'm glad to learn more about you and the fact that we have more in common than I anticipated. It's so freaking
Yeah.
cool. So, all right, I'll text you later. And before we end this episode, the expectation is every Tuesday and Thursday I will release an episode. We got Bobby here today. That's episode 2. Episode 3, I'm hoping to get Handsome Danny from Crimson Harvest.
Oh, awesome.
He wants to be in episode 3 because 3 is his lucky number as it is mine.
Ah, gotcha.
So, which reminds me. So, this interview will be dropped on a Tuesday.
Okay, cool, man.
And to be fair to the audience, yes, this is pre-recorded and it's a Sunday.
Yeah.
So, all right, Bob. Well, you take care of yourself. Thanks for being here.
Same to you, man. Thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. I'll talk to you later. Okay.
All right, take care, man.
All right. Take care.